Hi everyone, and welcome to Encouraging Technology Use. Today this is going to be a webinar on encouraging those of you who might not be so keen on technology or might need a little bit more support with it, or it might be for those of you who are supporting people who want to have a go more with technology. So we're Techability and we're supported by NatSpec and Carton. You can follow us at tech_ability1. Today, if you want to ask any questions, feel free to put them in the chat and we can answer those as we go along and have a little bit of a time for a chat at the end of it as well. Okay, so today there's a question of why is this important? And I really like this quote. Classrooms don't need tech geeks who can teach, we need teaching geeks who can use tech. Which is generally the way that I would advise people to go if you're looking to fill roles with especially on the front line with students. It's easier to learn technology than it is to learn all the complexities with working with individuals full stop, let alone individuals with disabilities. So I think it's better to go that people side of thing. So if someone says they're not good at tech or that they're not very keen on it, I think I'd just encourage them to focus on all the skills that they do have. And that's what today is about, really, is acknowledging that they have people have so much else to give that isn't technology, that if we can just encourage that little bit of technology use, we can make use of all those skills in the background as well. So a few stats that I found quite interesting. 82% of the jobs in the UK require digital skills. We're projected to have 5 million digitally underskilled workers in the UK by 2030. That seems like quite a lot. So we should be doing what we can to equip our students or service users with as many digital skills as possible. But it's much more than that. It isn't just work. It's also about on our day-to-day, just improving our teaching, our learning, what we're delivering in our centres. It's about easier access to the programs that we deliver, whether those are teaching or support or independence. It's about accessing physical and mental health. I don't know about you, but I have to book on and get prescriptions now online. I have to do things with the NHS in that kind of way, but then also if there are exercise classes and things like that, a lot of those will be easily accessible online, whereas it can be harder to get in touch with people on the phone and to access the information you need. There's a lot more community services as well that are available online. It's for many of our students, it's their main source of communication, i.e. using communication aids. But then for many more, it's a case of accessing through social media or accessing forums and things like that. It's also a source of creativity as well, and that's really important for everyone, really. So what are the main factors? Split them into three. So there's organizational factors, which are about your college or your centre. There's intersectional, which are lots of the different factors that are associated with people. And then there's drilling right down to the individual of who are you and what's been your story. So we'll be asking some questions later on around that and getting to start thinking about that. So starting organizationally, this is something that we created as Techability just to give an idea of an ideal scenario with the technology use in your organization. So if we start from the bottom up at the base of the pyramid, we really want all staff to have a general accessibility awareness. So knowing what the main functions are of it, when to spot if a student or an individual doesn't have access to something, and then we're building up to those who are working on a teaching or a support basis directly with students or centre users. We want them to have an idea of the built-in settings on the devices and the software. Then we want to have some specialists in the colleges to have specialist assistive technology knowledge. So the wide range of technology that's on offer to people with disabilities. And finally, external specialists. So we all at some point need someone who has a particular skill set. My example is always visual impairment, because having not lived as someone with a visual impairment, my experience and my knowledge can't compare to someone who's lived their life in that way. So these are the different areas and kind of levels of knowledge that we want to have. And if we can encourage people to just step up a little bit to that kind of level, then it's really powerful. Within organizations, we know there's a lot of constraints and there's a lot of factors. So time and pressure are very much on staff to actually roll out technology. We need to have time to do that. And often we talk about budgets or just getting hold of the devices in the first place, whereas lots of the challenges are based around training and integrating this as part of our kind of day-to-day lives. Having training, not just on the technology, but also how to assess students for the technology is really important. Risk management is one that's often spoken about, using the example of smart devices, so controlling things with your voice. Often it can be a risk when you're integrating this, especially in a college kind of setting, that you make sure that you hit compliance with a lot of the laws around tracking students and making sure that they're safe and making sure that those around them are safe. So risk management can be a major factor in that area. Celebrating success is really important. So do you have a newsletter? Do you have ways of sharing these things? Does it come up in meetings where you have a little bit of time in staff meetings and things like that to talk about these things? Training's in there twice, which was absolutely unintentional, but it's important. So there's training. Maybe one's internal training, one's external training. There we go. Retention is really important. I think if you're training up your staff and then they're moving on, or your staff are getting used to working with a particular student or individual and then they're moving on, then you're losing that knowledge. So it's really important to value who you've got and the knowledge that they're building up in your organization. The rate of change as well, you don't want to be too slow with introducing new technologies, as in missing out on these kind of major opportunities and not getting people excited about new and exciting things. But then also, if you go too quickly and you introduce everything at once, there's a lack of prioritization there, and people can become overwhelmed with the technology. So if you can, try and introduce a piece of technology at a time and give people time to get used to it. Be sure to explain what it's for as well. Staffing is important, not just staffing directly with the students, but also staffing with your IT team, and making sure that you've got those linking roles that link together with assistive technology. And budget, which comes last of all, but it ties into obviously a lot of this. So it's important to spend the money where it's going to have the biggest impact. Moving on to the second factor now, the second kind of area, I wanted to talk a little bit about intersectionality. And I've pulled out just one example with AI and ChatGPT. So this artificial intelligence and ChatGPT being the program where you can type in queries and it can come back with an awful lot of data, and it can give you information in a way that hasn't been available to people before. So there's examples of people being able to write CVs with it, writing emails with it, coming back with information on a particular subject. There's lots of different things it can be applied to. So this could be any different technology that uses the data. It isn't the technology itself that's the issue, the data behind it. So one of the articles that I was reading said that when they were asked to write a program that would determine whether a person should be tortured in an ethical kind of issue, OpenAI's answer is simple. If they're from North Korea, Syria, or Iran, the answer is yes, which is deeply troubling and an example of how we can't just take technologies as neutral. We can't just say that they are the same for everybody. There's another headline there underneath: AI can be racist, sexist, and creepy. covering quite a lot of bases there. What should we do about it? And then below, again, just ChatGPT proves AI still has a racism problem. And I think it's that example of garbage in, garbage out, as in the data that you're feeding something, or the way that you're designing a program, or your own cultural understanding and your understanding of who you are as a person affects the technology that is being created. So it's worth questioning these things and realizing that not everyone has the same experience with technology as you might. This is a really good overview of the different points of intersectionality. We're covering race, ethnicity, gender identity, class, language, religion, ability, sexuality, mental health, age, education, attractiveness, and many more. So these are beyond just the protected characteristics that are spoken about. And if you're someone with a disability, there's much more to you than just a disability. There are many different other kind of categories you'll fall under, and much that you'll have as an individual yourself. So when we're looking at these things, we want to be thinking about the complete picture. So different people approach technology differently depending on what age they might be. Different people from genders might approach in different ways. I know growing up between myself and my sister, I was the one that was encouraged to use technology and break it and fix it and all those kind of things, and my sister was encouraged into only other things. It was never that obvious and open, but it was just intrinsic in that that was what we were encouraged to do. So we have to understand that different people come from different perspectives on these things. And then beyond that, there's drilling down into who you are as an individual as well. So just take a few minutes to think about what your journey was with technology. Were you encouraged to have a go with technology? And actually, maybe in the chat, maybe talk about the first, if you could just ask people, what was the first technology that you remember having a go with? Were you told off if something broke? Were you encouraged to imagine yourself as someone who worked with technology as you get older? And could you play with it? Could you have a go with the technology? The example that I've used there is the Amiga. So that was a very old games console, but also could work as a kind of word processing tool and paint tool, and very basic. But I remember having a go with that and learning for the first time how a mouse works and how to use a keyboard. And as I was pretty terrible at writing, my handwriting was terrible, I really enjoyed it. So I had a really good experience with technology. And I remember when something broke in the house, or when there was a new piece of technology, I'd often be really curious as to how it worked. So things like my mum's digital watch, where I'd go through all the different functions and find out all about it, and then tell her what bits and what it could do and how to set an alarm and things like that. So does that match your experience? It doesn't match everyone's experience. Lots of people were told off if they broke technology. Lots of people were told that the adults were the ones that used the technology. There was maybe you thought of technology as a certain thing, so maybe it was just there for you to play with, maybe it was there just for you to work with, not one or the other. So we need to think about that when we're approaching people, understanding how it can affect individuals in that way. Okay, so we've looked about some of the factors. What can we do about it once we understand these factors, and once we understand why people might have different experiences with technology and need different support? So we've got some things here, utilising Universal Design for Learning, UDL. We can train our staff in both IT and AT. We can encourage staff just through things like newsletters and championing success. Championing technology can be through students, it can be through staff, and we don't just want to celebrate the high tech and the shiny and the new. We want to encourage good practice, and even kind of if someone really struggles with technology, if they've supported someone well, we want to celebrate that success. We want to focus the technology on targets and outcomes, and we want to use external organizations if we have areas that we think we can improve within our organization. So for the staff training on digital skills, there is a digital skills audit, which is quite useful. There's a discovery tool provided by JISC. There's also an essential digital skills framework by gov.uk. It's worth kind of seeing which of those apply to your organization and seeing how to adapt it to your organization. There's also training on digital skills. ETF have got some really good resources on that. And also JISC has got a building digital capability there. So I'll make sure these slides are sent out so you can look at your staff's digital skills, because encouraging that kind of build up of those skills can lead on to a lot of other things. Making accessible documents is really important as well, and making sure that people can access the documents that are created using the technology. So really useful, quite simple shortening of this is sculpts. So you're looking at the structure of a document, you're looking at the color contrast, the use of images, so making sure that you've got alt text on your images, links, hyperlinks described as links, plain English, and making sure you use a table structure without merged or split cells. You can go into a lot more depth with that. There's the WCAG guidelines, which are generally available for organizations to make sure that they have compliance with that. But if you're just trying to encourage people on a day-to-day basis to be better at these things, Sculpt is a really good place to start from. And if you're creating your documents by default in this format, it's more likely more people can access them. The set model is a really good starting point as well. It's trying to encourage people not to just see the technology itself, but actually see where we're trying to head with it. So the set model encourages you to see the student and their individual needs, the environment where their needs are to be met, the task of what the student wants to accomplish, and then finally, once that's all there, what AT tools have we got that will support the task? And this is by Joy Zabala, and the set framework is available through that link there. And just going a little bit further into that and what that means, I've got some pictures of technology here. So on the left, we've got voice control. So if we introduce voice control as a technology to our staff and to our students, as a technology itself, it can be quite overwhelming. You need to get it connected to the Wi-Fi. You need to know which devices it works with. There's a lot of complication, and it can be quite a challenging technology at first. However, if we talk about what we're trying to get towards, if we have a target at the end of this, so we want a student to be able to turn their lights on and off, then there can be a lot more buy-in from staff because they see a purpose and we see what we're driving towards. As we were talking about earlier, staff having all these different skills, and one of those real benefits is that these staff are very keen to help students. So if they can see an end goal and they can see something that we're working towards, then it can build some clarity. And then we don't need to know everything that voice control does. We don't need to know all the different functions, all the different commands. We don't necessarily, it's not everyone that needs to know how to connect it to the Wi-Fi. It can just be knowing a few key commands. And if we can start small with people, we can build up that encouragement. Another one in the middle here is it's encouragement not just for students, but for staff as well. This is a communication page, and it's one that's done through photos that the student might like. In this case, it's a picture of cats called Jedi and Ewok. And around it, we've got some communication sentences. So I want to go and play with the cats. I like Jedi and Ewok so much. I want to throw Jedi the ball. And this is a really good way, again, of making it personalized to the student. So this is on the software called the Grid 3. If we tried to teach everything on the Grid 3, it would be very overwhelming for someone, especially someone not very keen on technology. However, if we just started getting them to understand this page and how it works and how the student accesses this page, it's giving, again, a target and an end goal. And then finally, the example on the right-hand side, this is the short text tool as part of Microsoft Seeing AI, which is a tool you can use on your phone or iPad, and you can scan it over text and it will read it out instantly. So it's a useful tool, but again, to get that buy-in, if this could be something for a student where they could read signs at their work experience, or they could read a bus timetable, or they could read another document that they might have been struggling to get to, it's a lot more motivating for the staff, and it isn't just using technology for the sake of it, it's giving a direction. So the takeaway from this is give your technology a direction, make it target driven. Then you're much more likely to get buy-in from people. It isn't just introducing technology, it's introducing the direction to the technology. Another really useful one is the Techability Standards. So it's a really good way of kind of looking at your organization and self-auditing, giving you inspiration of areas you can look at. And it's laid out nice and clearly. We tried to offer it in plain English, and it's a really good way of checking through and seeing what you might be missing. How can you encourage technology use in your organization? And it's a good way of being signposted to links that might help you as well. Okay, so that's been the rundown of encouraging technology use. I'll send the slides out, and if you've got any questions, then catch us at Twitter @tech_ability1, or drop us an email, techability@natspec.org.uk. And I'll finish it there. Thank you very much, everyone. Okay, goodbye.